I'm gonna just jump into it. I kind of strayed away from having a conversation about the initial allegations or the more public allegations about Sean Combs and the civil suit from Cassie and things of that nature. Like, I try not to look at the news purposely, just because I don't know what news sources to trust. And then the video gets released. And there's an emotional component being the father of daughters, having a mother, having women in my life, period, and just being a man and being raised in a way that, as a kid, I saw male family members chase a dude up the block who stole money from the candy lady. The lady who sit on the stoop. Somebody ran up on the stoop, took something from her, and literally 5 dudes converged on him, chased him into the middle of the street, and whooped his ass. So, there's a place for that. And I think that it's relevant. And I think that it speaks to how a society maintains order within itself. There needs to be unapologetic protection for everyone, but especially for those we deem less capable of protecting themselves. I don't think they're more valuable. I think that we hold equal value, but I think as a man, you should hold up women or a woman in a certain light because you are a man, and vice versa. I think men should value women in that way, so they are, designed to protect them and feel protective over them, and vice versa, a woman over a man. Mothers and their sons, fathers and their daughters. In this time where we're trying to validate and give agency and accept and embrace agency over ourselves, and acknowledge worth and value, I think sometimes we lose sight of what we're actually designed to be doing and how nature created us and wired us to move a certain way, to feel, to have emotional responses a certain way. There are a lot of things that, if you have that chicken before the egg conversation, you may feel something before you understand why you feel it. That's called instinct. And it happens emotionally as well as, biologically and physically. And so the conversation about Mr. Combs, Puff, Diddy, whatever, is, I think the feelings about what he did, those are simple. mean, it's simple to know that that's absolutely abhorrent. It's horrific. And that's the easy part. But people are having conversations about other nuances within this. And I don't believe that those things are as simplistic as people are making them seem. And it's causing a lot of false narratives, and it's a dangerous game to play. It is very important that people are actually being emotionally efficient. When you're talking about trauma, when you're talking about PTSD and the effects of said trauma, a person can experience something and not deal with that trauma and have shockwaves that affect them throughout their life and have habits that are damaging and traumatic to generations after them that they inflict. And they can be 100% fucked up for doing those things. But it's not giving them an excuse if you acknowledge that that behavior comes from trauma that they experienced themselves. You can have accountability and empathy at the same time. That is a problem that creates weird psychological behavior patterns and outlooks and outtakes on individuals that they're not real. And I think that it's just as criminal to disavow the effect of trauma on people. Like that gives more credence or somehow takes away the validity of the vileness of their actions. It doesn't. If you're looking for cause and effect, you have to be able to separate the difference. Some people don't want to because they just can't. But that doesn't mean that it's incorrect. And I wish we were having a more intellectual conversation about it. Yes, his character is fucked up. He's a fucked up individual. But so are most powerful individuals. Let's not get it twisted. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's in all cases. It goes across all genders, all ethnicities. It doesn't make it like most people seek out power so that they can traverse life without consequence and on their own terms. That's the reason why they seek it out. People want money, not necessarily just to say I got a lot of money, but what the money allows them to do. There's a level of freedom that comes when you have zero consequence, or when you feel like you have zero consequence, or when you feel like you have the means to remove consequences from your equation. And I'm sorry, I'm a person like, I don't feel like there's any degree of power or financial driven manipulation that's acceptable. If we're all humans and we're all entitled to the same level of humanity, somebody having money, being able to skip the line at the grocery store, being able to get better health care, being able to skip the line at the airport and push somebody else off their flight, none of that shit is good. because you don't know what that does to the person that it affects. You could starve somebody out by keeping them out of the fucking grocery store. You could make somebody miss their mother's funeral because you kicked them off that plane. The same way as overtly as you watch this Diddy, video of him, beating Cassie, and all the things that you hear about, the things that you hear about Harvey Weinstein, the things that you hear about Ellen, the things that you hear about any powerful person and how they wield their influence, from the smallest to the tallest, it's the same shit. If you've ever been at the receiving end of someone making your humanity mean less than theirs because they have power and financial influence, you may not out loud compare yourself to what we just witnessed from CNN, but you're going to have empathy because you've been pushed aside, or you've been punished, or you've been abused in some way because you didn't have the influence and the power that the abuser had. Understand, I'm not comparing the severity of the two. What I'm saying is, relatively, using your power and influence is abuse. And for those who are religious Christians, sin is sin. I'm just trying to, if we're trying to bring some uniformity and say, okay, well, it's okay for you to buy somebody out and, do this, be corrupt and be influential with your power this way, but then it's not okay to do it this way. That's too slippery of a slope. We need to have a standard, because what happens is, where do you move the goalpost? That's what these people have been doing their entire life. As they came up through the ranks and saw, oh man, now I have this, I can do this. Oh, now I have this, I can do this. The perversion and the abuse of power that comes is fucking universal. In an ethnic discussion, those of us that are part of a community that identify with Puff, we may hold him more responsible because of the example and how his behavior will be used to paint a picture of all of us. And make no mistake, we're in America. And I'm going to speak about this in a different podcast. My experience will never be the same as another black person's experience anywhere in the world. We are unique in the manner with which we came to inhabit this country, and the political and literal circumstances that we find ourselves in from back then, even up until now and into the future. We were brought in as property of a colonizer. Most people that suffer oppression, someone goes into their home, takes control of their situation, and power dynamics them. Not only were we stripped of our connection to where we come from, our oppression happened outside of our homeland. So if we were to have a revolution, we're not even fighting for our place. We're not even fighting for our original land. These power dynamics, they deserve more discussion in addition to the emotional, visceral response to what we're seeing. We got a lot of individuals who are intellectual, and we're using this shit as clickbait. They're using this shit as clickbait, and they're afraid to have the conversation. And that's why this shit will continue to go on perpetually, because nobody's talking about it the right way. I don't got no excuse for no person who's out here swinging they shit around like they don't have to follow the same rules as everybody else. But that's the goal, right? The goal and the allure of our economic system in this society is that one day we might have the ability to do what they do. That the poor and disenfranchised have an opportunity not only to support themselves, but they may hit the lotto. They may invent something that puts them in a space where they no longer are shackled by the confines of regular life. Nobody's looking to gain all this fame and fortune and power to help millions and millions of people that have less than them. Philanthropy comes after excess. Philanthropy comes as a tax write-off. Stop playing with me, man. I don't even know if I'm escaping it. I don't know what's gonna happen if I all of a sudden come into a fortune. I know how I feel right now, what I would do. But the mark of your character, of who you are as a person, and how devout you are in your beliefs and your standards, is what happens when you reach that level. What are you gonna do? I'm not giving anybody excuses. Not myself, not any member or section of society that feels like they are somehow removed from the seduction of power. These people on these platforms that got this money, oh, you think they ain't went to the line and skipped the line at the club, or paid extra to get their stuff quicker than somebody else, or went in somewhere and felt like they could drop the check or drop their name and gain favor and fortune above someone else who doesn't have that same cachet? You're out of your fucking mind. And I'm sick of people playing all high and mighty. Just because there's no taping you in a hotel dragging somebody down the hall doesn't mean you don't abuse your power. So what do is your defense? Well, at least I'm not Diddy. At least I'm not Harvey Weinstein. And I say that because I hold myself to that standard. And when I'm saying it may seem extreme, people who know me, they understand, they see how I move. There's a level of, I don't ever want to have to talk about myself the way that I talk about these other people. I don't ever want to feel about myself, and I'm not perfect. It's a constant, vigilant self-check. I'm checking me more than I'm checking the people outside of me, the world around me. I'm checking me and how I move. And I don't make any excuses. Shout out to Keith Ellison, my father. He gave that to me and my brother. There is no excuse. And you take accountability for who you are. The problem is these people take accountability and there's no remorse. There's no regret. They don't feel like what they're doing is wrong. And if they do, they're okay with it because that's what they was in it for in the first place. This shit is crazy. And people want to turn it into, oh, it's men, it's women. No, it's everybody. The sooner that we accept that this is not power, is a human, fame, power, fame, money. Those are things that affect human beings. Too much affects them. A majority of them, not all, I don't want to say all, but a majority of them will abuse their power in some way, shape, form, or fashion when they achieve it. Because if you're not immediately concerned with being generous and being philanthropist, there's a difference when you go to and you shop somewhere that other people can't afford. You're in your tax bracket. That makes sense. You're not asking for favor. This is, you're paying for something that only you could afford in that space. It's not affecting anyone. Buying that Ferrari is not stopping somebody from buying a Honda or a Toyota. So it's not the same. But when you're directly taking advantage of your power and your influence amongst those in arenas who don't have it, that's an abuse. It's abusive. And like I said, it's dangerous because where do you draw the line? Where it's not even where do you draw the line about how far you go. What line do you draw when you're saying this is an acceptable amount of harm for me to inflict on somebody? They should be okay. That's what's really being said. That's what's really being perpetrated when you say this is an acceptable abuse of power and this is not. Watch your head. Y'all crazy out here. Yeah, I'm talking about Diddy, but I'm more talking about the abuse of power that all powerful individuals or majority of powerful individuals, influential individuals like to exercise. Damn near is the motivation in seeking that power. And now we're in a generation where people are less concerned about they want the power of influence, and that is enough with no skill, with the skill to create influence. They're being rewarded financially for it. It's a cycle literally feeding itself. The more influence you have, the more power that you have, just that alone is going to garner you more money, which will garner you more resources to garner more influence so you can have more money. It's a vicious cycle. People need to look at what the fuck is going on. I stay inside for a reason. I stay quiet for a reason. My family knows my moves. That's it. And not even all of them. I love them. But I also understand, not because of them, but because of these airwaves, you never know who's listening. And I'm not a braggart, and I'm not a tough guy, and I'm not none of that. All I'm saying is, whatever I got to do to protect me and mine, I'm willing to do. It's how I was raised, and it's instinctual for me. So I look at this shit a little different. This is just part one, man. I had to get this out. Click the link in the bio. Part two will come soon. Peace.